Good afternoon to all of you. I think we are really reaching to the lunchtime, but we still have a bit of time. I'll take you to a very different scenario, I think, being practical that I am, and heading the largest course at the university, and being told all the time that we have to increase the pass rate over 80%. And what we should do, I can see my dean smiling away, sitting there. I coordinate English for academic purposes. All of you who are at USP know, when I talk about numbers, I don't talk about 50 or 60. I talk about thousands. And I also talk about face-to-face, not only at Laudala, 4 campuses. When I talk about those who are distant, I talk about students from all over the world. I have students who do print from Middle East, from PNG. If they are traveling due to their work commitments, they're submitting assignments from China, from Russia, from Canada, or if they have a stunt from anywhere, even the prison or the hospital. And after I came back in 2008, we reintroduced Flexi Mode, which means on an average 12 to 13 flexi schools every December-January period. So we are looking at students, as we all have heard from the sessions this morning, 3,000 or 330, how many millions of kilometers only in the Pacific region, but when I look at it, they come from all over the world. I also look at the diversity, culture, language, everything that you can see. My presentation is looking at how we cross all the boundaries that we have when we are teaching them something which isn't their own. I'm not looking at teaching language. I'm looking at teaching them the study skills, where they are second, third, fourth learners of language. They have not been to tertiary institutes before. We have to teach them the skills that will help them comfortably, with confidence, learn or actually reintroduce those things in the classes or in the classrooms in all the different disciplines they are in. I'm looking at the transformational pedagogy from a very different perspective, and how we can actually look at how we actually bridge that gap that we have, and looking at all the different boundaries that we have and how we actually cross them. I'm going to give you a snapshot of something that we did and which worked, and which we hope that we can actually do if we are given that opportunity, and the infrastructure, the staff, and whatever we actually hope for. The theoretical perspective that I have actually looked at, or is based on, looking at what the transformative pedagogy actually means, where it came from, and as well as looking at another theory that I have actually used when I was actually preparing this paper. We all, if you have done a bit of reading about the transformative pedagogy, would have had, it came from the ideas of Pablo Freire, who was a Brazilian philosopher who believed, or who had the pedagogy of what we call the oppressed critical approaches, where he believed that education is for everyone, and those who don't have the opportunity should be given that chance as well. It involves engaged learning, where everyone has an opportunity to say their mind, to actually share their views and say that, okay, this is what I want, and can this institute or can this person actually help me cross that boundary? It also has something which says that it's not something that is limited to the classroom. What scenario I have given you means it can also happen in a small hut, in a remote village, where most of my students who are doing the course by print also come from. And where there is some form of negotiation, looking at the subject matter, looking at the assignment topics, deadlines, forms of negotiation which can happen. Also the methodologies, and of course looking at that these strategies actually involve trying to have some kind of a discussion or in a negotiation where the instruction, as well as the learner, the group that person comes from, as well as the organization that person actually represents. The other theory that I'm going to look at, or also which the transformative pedagogy also refers to, is those by the Davy, Vygotsky, Brunner, Biggs, the socioculturalists, and all sorts. The one that I have actually looked at looks at the development work research, which provides the link between the education, the knowledge management, as well as the creation. It is actually looking at the boundary crossing which is there between the learner, the collective learning, and the organizational practices that we have. When we have innovations, what do we do? Vygotsky's Sociocultural Theory itself looked at what I have actually used for my presentation is the ZPD, okay, the distance, and how can we actually reduce that gap? So, in a classroom, we may have something of this sort. We know we have the learners who have that level, but how do we actually make them achieve that what we want them to? How do we actually go over that? We have scaffolding, we have so many different things that can actually help learners achieve. Our problem at USP in most cases is we are unable to actually identify the levels at which they come to us. So, in most of the classrooms that I have given you the examples from, we have a mixed group. The variety, the diversity that we actually have is not like what you may find in a 200 or a 300 level content-based course. Especially if you are doing a university course, you have students from all backgrounds. So what actually helped or what actually worked in one of the rooms or one of the classes that we actually had a look at was very different. The room that, or the class that I have actually looked at for this is a small group, not really very small. We had 28 students, mature Itoke students who had to pass the course. They were on scholarship. They were given time off from their work, 5 weeks, study leave. They had to pass the course. They could not enroll in any other courses unless and until they had passed English for academic purposes. We all knew what their background was, unlike other classes that we have. We all know, of course, all of them have the aim to pass the course and get on. We have the issues where they cannot enroll in 200 level courses without passing UU 114. And if they are on training leave, that actually is like a dagger on them. They know that if they don't pass the course, if they have to repeat, they have to pay themselves. So we had that issue as well. All of them, as I mentioned earlier, were mature entrants. Our first day in class told us they had never actually gone or accessed Moodle. We had issues with the flexi school enrollments where they cannot have access to Moodle, forget about all the other activities and things that we actually had planned to do with the group. So, what do we do in that situation? How actually do we help those students jump that boundary? We have to do things which can actually help them learn better. And that is where the WDR and the ZPD comes in. We do the diagnostic. We try to find out what they are, what their aims are, where they are, what they want to do, and how do we actually go about carrying on and making them pass. So we actually had to negotiate, sit and decide on what are some of the things that can help them learn. In this situation, I'm not looking at the innovations where technology is concerned. I'm looking at how the transformative learning can take place while still in the situation that we are at present. We have to look at their competence level and see, with the type of assistance that we can provide, how can they actually become better learners. So what we do? All courses, all the different modes that I actually coordinate, we have the same structure, but we had to change in order to help these students learn better. We begin with a diagnosis. We found out what level they were at. Advantages in this group was that they had all the same first language. We also knew what background they came from. We also knew which program they were all enrolled for, as well as what they were aiming to do later in life. So, unlike in other courses, it was very easy to do a needs analysis. We also were able to actually do a teaching plan based on why they were doing the course. They were from the stakeholders who actually wanted them to become the Fijian education officers so that they could actually be the trainers for the other Fijian teachers who actually would come later to do their diploma in Fijian studies program. So we had to re-look at the content, the assessments, as well as how we were teaching and what we were teaching. We had to redesign the classroom activities as well as look at the group activities that we actually had for them. We had to review the assessment tasks as well as look at what level they were and how could we actually push them to become better learners. Feedback, again, remembering which background they came from, being practical. We had to actually decide how feedbacks, how group work, how class activities could be done. And also the feedback and the final exam and the revision and the results showed a very different picture, unlike others that we had in other flexi schools where we had a mixed group, face-to-face or print-out. These are some of the examples of the type of tasks we did. Because it's a study skills course, which is a general course, we actually have in other modes as well, students from all different disciplines. But we had to actually look at the kind of issues that everyone would be looking at if they were in their own or teaching or in other fields that they were coming from. Issues that we usually look at, being practical, looking at the context they came from. So issues like global warming. It's nothing new. People in the Pacific can discuss that. Looking at even things like communal life. That was very engaging for actually get the kind of feedback the students actually in that group were looking and doing. Because obviously, coming from the background they were, it was easy for them to share their views. Excellent group work, excellent seminar presentations, as well as good assessment that they had given. Report writing, again an issue which was very easy for them to relate to, and which they could actually share amongst themselves because it was something which everyone at present is actually looking at. The results speak for themselves. Very rarely do we get A or A pluses, especially when we have a mixed group. We had one who had an E, but there were also issues with the health issues that the person had. But unlike other modes as well as other groups, we found that some of the reasons why this group actually did so much better was because we could do the needs analysis. We could actually provide them with a tutor who was also speaking the same language. They were all from the same group. Because of the negotiation we had, where the level of learning, as well as things like what type of assessments we actually had, and the fact that they all knew each other in the group, made this learning even more enjoyable as well as successful in this situation. So what I would like to just suggest from this snapshot that I had is if there is a negotiation between the DWR as well as the ZPD, if we know why someone is studying, what potentials do they have, the facilities they are capable of utilizing, and how do we go over that? I mean, those of us who teach 114, we always have plan B, C, and D, because when we are anywhere, we know, what if this doesn't work? What if that doesn't work? What do we do then? And it made us realize that if we had that opportunity to do the needs analysis as well as to know more about the student body, and if we could actually divide them into the groups according to their disciplines or according to their content, according to whatever their specific needs were, it would make our as well as their studying much more, teaching even more interesting. And of course, if we can achieve that, it's going to help. Mixed mode teaching, yes. Do it looking at our current infrastructure as well as the kind of student body we look at, looking at the diversity we have. We have to actually understand and use that. And of course, if we do a needs analysis, unfortunately, we cannot, when we have something like what we act or something like what I coordinate, when we have close to 1,000 face-to-face here, as well as more than 100 in Vanuatu, as well as other 2 campuses where we have face-to-face, it's very difficult to do the needs analysis, and that makes it even more difficult for the student success. I would like to acknowledge the teaching assistant Anna Kitolele for teaching the group, as well as the data that was provided. Thank you.